Now, there are fresh calls for an inquiry into the New South Wales Police Force after the death of a mother who was tasered by police following a 9-hour siege at her Newcastle home. Police allege that the 47-year-old Krista Kach had been threatening people with an axe. But then video footage leading up to the police breaking into her home shows the 47-year-old alone, unarmed and suffering a mental health episode. Her children have spoken out and say that the police actions are disturbing. As you'll recall, this is the second death now this year involving New South Wales police tasering someone. It just comes months after the 95-year-old great-grandmother Clare Nowland died after being tasered in an aged care home. It's also not the only issue surrounding the New South Wales Police Force. In May, an inquiry was launched after a woman was found dead 20 hours after she called 000 for help. And today, the Daily Telegraph reports on the front page that detectives are being forced to cover staff shortages on the front line. New South Wales Greens MP Sue Higginson, who is leading the charge for a parliamentary inquiry, joins me now. Sue, thank you very much for your time. So what's happened in this latest tasering incident that's been so disturbing that's led for you to try and set up an inquiry?
Yeah, hi, Shari. Look, first I need to acknowledge there's a grieving family out there right now. Poor Krista is now deceased after a relentless pursuit by police. She was in her own home. There were hours and hours and hours. And the last 4.5 hours of Krista's life are captured on video, where we can see that the police just relentlessly pursued her. She was alone, she was in her home, and for the last hour, she was literally lying on her bed watching a movie, an animated movie about happiness. The police broke into her home. What we then know is that they discharged a beanbag at her and then they tasered her, and now she's dead. This is just evidence that we've really got the settings wrong. We need to look at how are we going so wrong. As you identified, this is not the first. Unless we take a long, hard look at how this has happened, it's going to keep happening. We need to have an inquiry where people can come forward, including police, former police, and they can shine a light on what we're doing wrong. People right now that need care are actually being killed in the hands of the police.
Well, first this 47-year-old mother, then there was the 95-year-old great-grandmother who, you know, we've seen photographs of her. We know what unfolded. We haven't seen the CCTV footage of that incident yet. There's, you know, police are refusing to make it public, but it's clear that there is an abuse of physical force happening on some vulnerable women. Where do you think this comes from? Is this just individual police, you know, acting, not following the guidelines, or is this a leadership issue?
Look, I think it's definitely a systemic issue. Even if a police officer has done the wrong thing in the moment and there's an accountability there, even criminal charges like we've seen with Clare Nowland, what we know is that it's the entire approach. I mean, if police are being called to do a welfare check, like what we saw in Glebe with young Jesse, and he was literally tasered and then died, what we're seeing is people experiencing difficulty, complex traumas, mental health scenarios. Police are called. We know that even just the vision, the sight of seeing a police officer in uniform with weapons, and let's remember we're talking about lots of weapons, this increases trauma. It elevates the circumstances and escalates the trauma that's being experienced, and that's where we're seeing things go wrong. I'm very frustrated that today the Premier actually suggested that we don't need a parliamentary inquiry and that accountability will happen. This is not just about accountability, this is about how we improve things and go forward. We want reform. This state deserves reform right now. We've got people in crisis. The crises that people are experiencing are not going away. In fact, in certain circumstances, things are escalating. We've got cost of living crisis. Let's remember, Krista literally was first approached that day because she was told that she would be evicted from her home. I mean, this is what we're seeing. We heard the Minister for Mental Health this morning. I think she's much more open to an inquiry. I think she's more cognizant of what's happening out there in the community. The Premier really needs to wake up here.
Sue Higginson, I really appreciate your time. And, you know, what's been so concerning, I think, from the police force in all of this is that we have seen this culture of trying to cover up the events. We know that the Police Commissioner, Karen Webb, tried to remove any mention of tasering when it came to Clare Nowland when they put out that media release announcing her death. There was a Freedom of Information request that actually uncovered how they tried to not mention taser so the public wouldn't know what had happened to her. So, you know, I think there is a lot to uncover in an inquiry. Sue Higginson, thank you for your time.